Honorable Ministers, senior government officials, members of the Fourth Estate, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our 26th post-cabinet press briefing for 2026. Allow me to invite the chairperson of the session, Honorable Minister of Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services, Dr. Soda, to present today's cabinet highlights. Over to you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chief Secretary. Today, the 4th of August 2026, His Excellency the President, Comrade Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, chaired the 26th Cabinet meeting, and the following issues, among others, were considered and approved. Cabinet noted and approved an update on the 2025-2026 summer crops marketing and 2026 winter production plan as presented by the Minister of Agriculture, Mechanization and Water Resources Development, Honorable Dr. Anxious Jongwe Masuka. Cabinet advises that the second round of crop, livestock and fisheries assessment report reveals that the food security outlook for the country is generally positive. Currently, government stocks held at the Grain Marketing Board as at 28 July 2026 stands at 239,824.8 metric tons. The grain intake pattern reveals that the GMB deliveries from the 2025-2026 season are 135% above the 2024-2025 season, with other contributing 91.22% of the grain deliveries. Furthermore, a total of 422,821 metric tons of crops comprising maize, soybean, sorghum, and sunflower have been formally marketed as at 30 July 2026, compared to 251,648 metric tons marketed at the same time in 2025. The Grain Marketing Board has settled 100% of its previously outstanding farmer payment obligations from the 2024-2025 season. Payments in excess of United States dollars 19 million have also been paid for the 2025-2026 season deliveries. It is noteworthy that GMB holds 67,783.5 metric tons of third-party grain stocks since the completion of artificial intelligence-powered silos and subsequent offering of commercial storage facilities directly through the warehouse receipt system. The progress regarding the various crop hectarage and volumes harvested as at 30 July 2026 is as follows. The total maize area planted increased from 1,813,974 hectares in 2025 to 1,963,292 hectares in 2026, while total production increased from 2,203,556 metric tons to 2,685,021 metric tons, a growth of 17.1%. And the soybean production increased from 52,794 metric tons to 119,067 metric tons, which is a 125% increase. As at 29 July 2026, a record 355.9 million kilograms of tobacco had been sold at an average price of US dollars 2.49 per kilogram. This represents a 0.3% increase in volume from 354.9 million kilograms in 2025, which was sold at US $3.33 per kilogram. Export performance remains strong compared to the corresponding period in 2025, with volumes increasing by 40% from 91 126.3 million kilograms to 127.5 million kilograms. The cotton producer prices for 2026 marketing season according to grades are as follows. Grade A, US 43 cents per kilogram. Grade B, US 41 cents per kilogram. Grade C, US 38 cents per kilogram. And grade D, US 35 cents per kilogram. Payment is made instantly on delivery, subject to the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe regulations on foreign and local currency ratios. Regarding the winter production update, the wheat planted area is 133,048 hectares, which is 106% compared to 121,281 hectares in 2025. The area planted by ADA is 65,585 hectares against a target of 65,000 hectares. An area of 7,013 hectares has been planted to barley. To date, 102,080 metric tons of Irish potato has been produced from 3,520 hectares out of a targeted yield of 243,850 metric tons. The average yield stands at 29 metric tons per hectare compared to the 26 metric tons per hectare realized during the corresponding period in 2025. Cabinet considered and approved the compendium of proposed legacy projects for the 2027 Independence Day celebrations to be held in Masvingo Province, which was presented by the Minister of Local Government and Public Works, Honorable Daniel Garwe, on behalf of the Chairman of the Cabinet Committee on State Occasions and National Monuments, the Honorable Vice President Colonel Retired Dr. KCD Mohadi. The nation is being informed that the 47th Independence celebrations will be held at Rutenga Growth Point in Mwenezi District on the 18th of April 2027. Accordingly, government identified various projects which will be implemented as part of the legacy projects for the 2027 Independence celebrations. The projects include 13 stalled projects that need to be completed, 54 devolution projects, and new legacy projects to be implemented in the host district Mwenezi. The legacy projects will include construction of a 16,000-seater stadium, changing rooms, ablution facilities, construction and furnishing of 16 science laboratories, construction of 39 satellite schools, equipping and solarizing computer laboratories, rehabilitation of Liberation War heritage sites, including Urodzevasikana battle site, provincial and district heroes acres, the construction of 10 houses for veterans of the liberation struggle in Mwenezi district, and the construction of a youth service and vocational training center, among others. Government will also undertake road rehabilitation and construction, including Rutenga Bolisango, 150 kilometers, Ngundu Tanganda, 45 kilometers, Rutenga Zvishavane, 84.2 kilometers, among others, and will continue the ongoing works to complete the Masvingo Bait Bridge Road, 34 kilometers, and the Makwi Neshuro Road, 12 kilometers. In addition, government through the Rural Infrastructure Development Agency and partners will drill 105 boreholes, install 40 pumps, install 50 solar-powered water schemes, maintain 1,500 boreholes, and in collaboration with the Ministry of Agriculture, Mechanization and Water Resources Development, establish 21 village business units. The nation is informed that government will undertake a robust resource mobilization and will continue to implement legacy projects across all provinces in order to transform and improve livelihoods of citizens, making sure that no one and no place is left behind. Cabinet noted and approved the mop-up review of licenses, permits, levies and fees charged by ministries, departments and agencies in agriculture, education, transport, sport and natural stone export subsector as presented by the Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment Promotion, Honorable Mthuli Ncube. In order to ensure that the ease of doing business review of licenses, permits, levies and fees comprehensively covers all the sectors of the economy, Cabinet extended the process to include outstanding sectors and subsectors that were not covered during the review of the initial 13 priority sectors approved on 29 July 2025. The residual sectors and subsectors comprise agriculture, education, transport, sports, and the natural stone export subsector. Cabinet approved the streamlining of duplicated and overlapping regulatory licenses and permits, removed unnecessary levies and fees, and lowered unjustifiably high residual levies and fees as per the following selected highlights. Reduction of the Agricultural Marketing Authority industrial hemp registration fees, reduction of the Medicines Control Authority of Zimbabwe industrial hemp application processing fee, reduction of the Medicines Control Authority of Zimbabwe industrial hemp cannabis license, and reduction of the Medicines Control Authority of Zimbabwe agricultural medicinal cannabis research permit, the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education Schools annual affiliation, ZIMSEC annual affiliation fee and examination fees remain at current levels. Formalization of tricycles registration, the vehicle change of ownership remains unchanged for all types of vehicles. Reduction of the Sports and Recreation Commission 6% get takings levy by 50%. Reduction of the Zimbabwe Football Association ZIFA 6% of gross income of match day revenue by 50%. Reduction of the Premier Soccer League levy pegged at 10% of net income of match day revenues to 4%. And the reduction of local authorities 15% venue hire levy to 10% of total gross attendance. Reduction of local authorities outdoor advertising capped at $2.50 per square meter, that is in United States dollars. Abolishing cemetery entry fees. Meanwhile, the reviews will be effective upon the finalization of the requisite statutory adjustments. Cabinet considered and approved the principles of the Zimbabwe Red Cross Society Amendment Bill 2026, which was presented by the Minister of Defense. The Zimbabwe Red Cross Society is an independent board that complements government in humanitarian support and works closely with ministries, including the Ministry of Defense. Zimbabwe became a member of the Geneva Convention in 1983, assuming the pre-colonially established branch status of the British Red Cross Society. Over the years, there have been changes that the amendment seeks to align the Zimbabwe Red Cross Act, Chapter 1708 of 1981 to the additional protocols 1 and 2 of the Geneva Conventions, in addition to the initial 4. The amendment will ensure that the legislation remains relevant to current priorities of the Zimbabwe Red Cross Society, including the elimination of redundant provisions, alignment with the Constitution and the international standards, clarification of the Society's roles, protection of the use of the Red Cross emblem, and strengthening of administrative efficiency and governance through the substitution of the Executive Council with a national governing council. Cabinet noted and approved the reports on the 49th ordinary session of the African Union Executive Council held from the 28th to the 29th of July 2026 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, as presented by the Minister of Higher Tertiary Education, Innovation, Science and Technology Development, Honorable Dr. F.M. Shava, as Acting Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade. The 49th ordinary session of the African Union Executive Council meeting, attended by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, Professor Eimur Wira, sought to advance the implementation of Agenda 2063 by strengthening the African Union's institutional effectiveness, promoting sustainable financing, enhancing continental integration, and consolidating peace, security, and good governance. The outcome of the Executive Council meeting included adoption of several strategic decisions aimed at strengthening continental integration and institutional effectiveness. Above all, the meeting succeeded in promoting the country's bilateral and strategic engagements. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for presenting today's cabinet highlights. We now move to the first round of 3 questions. Yes.
Thank you, Chief Secretary. My name is Mokudze Chingwere from the Herald. My question is directed to the Minister of Finance and Investment Promotion. The chairman of the session talked about the reduction of fees and the ease of doing business reforms that have been slashed in the agricultural sector. There are some fees were reduced in several sectors. For instance, in September 2025, parking fees were slashed by 50% for local authorities, and some penalties involved, and they are yet to come into effect. My question now is, when are these measures likely to come into effect? And the ones that you publicized before, when are they also expected to come into effect? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. My name is Chen Williams from AMH, and my question is directed to the Ministry of Finance. It's in question to the reduction in licenses and permit fees for medicinal hemp. What inspired this particular reduction, and what are the expected outcomes in terms of export revenue and economic growth? Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Secretary. My name is Latwo Nyangu from ZN Prime. My question is directed to Minister Mtuli, adding on to what Mukudze asked. I want to ask pertaining the issue of the implementation rate. Is government satisfied with how some of these policies are put into effect? Thank you.
Yes, over to you, Minister.
Thank you, Chief Secretary. The first question, I think all three questions are referred to the Minister of Finance, beginning with one from Mokudze Chingwere, Chen Williams, and Latwo Nyangu. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Soda. I thank the colleagues from Fourth Estate for the questions, all three, starting with Chingwere. Basically, you made a comment that I think we made progress in policy pronouncements in terms of the reduction of these fees and licensing procedures. But there are some that are still outstanding. You are correct. The issue of parking fees in local authorities is still outstanding, and also the 50% reduction in cap in some of the local authority fees has not yet been implemented. This also includes the penalties and clamping fees, for example, to get your car released once clamped. This is an issue that we've asked the Minister of Local Government to work with local authorities on to make sure that it is implemented. The reason has been that you have existing contracts, contracts that are already in place, which stipulate certain fees. So by then pronouncing a certain fee hurdle or cap or whatever we were pronouncing, then one is changing the content of the contract and the terms of the contract. So that's what then the municipal local government will then negotiate with local authorities so that we comply. They comply with the new directive. We don't want to do an abrupt, type of decision making. We also respect contracts. So we want to make sure that the service providers are on board. Turning to the question by Mukudze, what prompted the drop in the registration fees, licensing fees for the medicinal hemp and cannabis industries? We're trying to drive investment, frankly. You may know that we tried in the past to even encourage our tobacco farmers also to start going into growing of industrial hemp, and so as to diversify away from tobacco because of the anti-tobacco lobby. But we just want to drive investment into the sector. Medicinal hemp has so many uses. That oil can, even be used for making drugs for curing cancer and so forth. And the industrial hemp has, again, so many uses. You can make fiber, you can make bags, you can make sandals. So it's a lucrative business that we think by dropping the registration fees, licensing fees, we should be able to encourage more investment into the sector and create more jobs and also grow our exports. Turning to, I couldn't tell who asked the question, are we satisfied with the rate of implementation of these policies? Well, it takes time, to put legislation in place, but we're pleased so far. And where there are issues, we also highlighted ourselves and say, please, let's move faster in these areas. But we're pleased so far. So far, we've at 70% implementation. There's still a 30% to go, and we'll get there. But we're pleased so far, and industry and investors are pleased with this initiative of reducing the cost of doing business. In fact, this program has already been highlighted globally as a very successful program in Africa, where we've been able to do a lot right across the board, almost without exception, reducing the cost of doing business. This has never happened before in terms of reform agendas. So this is highly commended, and we're pleased with the rate of progress so far. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for responding to those questions. Let's move to the last round of 3 questions. Yes.
Thank you very much, Chief Secretary. My name is Chawanda Bruce from ZBC. My question is directed to Dr. Masuka. We've heard the positive numbers in terms of output, but what does this mean to Zimbabweans against the weather predictions in the future?
Thank you, Chair. Again, Chair. My question is directed to the Ministry of Finance. If possible, may you please expand on the new fees, what the new fees may be?
Thank you. My question is directed to Dr. Masuka. Looking at the grain intake patterns, they look so satisfying. But my question is looking at sustainability. Is it going to be sustainable? And in the event that the weather changes happen, are there any contingent plan to avert any crisis looking at food security? Okay, my name is Latwe Nyangu from ZN Prime.
Thank you, Chief Secretary. First question from Bruce Chawanda is directed to the Minister of Agriculture. If you could tackle it together with the question from Latwo Nyangu. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chair, and I thank the two colleagues for the questions. I think the questions are related, perhaps two sides of the same coin. That in good years, Zimbabwe is now ordinarily food secure on account of the interventions made by the Second Republic, being the adoption of the sustainable intensive conservation agriculture model from Vudza Intwasa, which we, alongside agroecological tailoring of crops, and also the accelerated irrigation development and the various supportive policies, including crowding in the private sector through a structured market liberalization approach, and of course attending to enablers such as mechanization and much more. So we will, in a good year, be able to harvest, as we have done now, just over 2.6 million metric tons of maize, over 300,000 metric tons of sorghum, so collectively just above 3 million metric tons of cereals against our consumption of about 2.2 million of food and feed. So a very healthy surplus, which is reflected now in the increase in the marketed crops. You note that we are over 422,000 metric tons of harvested in marketed crops, which is a 68% increase on last year. And regarding GMB and mop as much grain as is possible for this enhanced strategic grain reserve in view of the predicted El Nino season. And government's plan is to be able to exit the year at 450,000 metric tons. And this, I think, will be achievable. We want, by the end of this month, to have reached 300,000 metric tons of the strategic grain reserve. And from the current wheat harvest, which will start perhaps in a week or so, we will be able to mobilize again through mainly ADA another 150,000 metric tons, so we can carry into 2027 450,000 metric tons. You will recall that in 2024, when with the worst drought in living memory, we distributed 328,000 metric tons to 6.5 million Zimbabweans, and a further 33,000 metric tons to 4.5 million learners. So with 450,000 metric tons, that is enough cushioning to see the beneficiaries of social welfare carried through a very difficult year that is predicted from the Super El Nino. So that is what we are doing. So that's the contingent measure. When we have a good season, let's ensure that we are able to restock the strategic grain reserve as much as possible, which is why government is investing in the AI-powered silos. And we want by 2030 to have put in 1.5 million metric tons worth of silo space. And these are capable of storing grain for up to 5 years. And you will note that in the distribution of the 14 new silo sites, we are building silos in unconventional areas. We are putting in Rutenga, in Lupane, in Gokwe, areas that actually do not produce much, so that in good years we produce and be able to move this grain to be stationed in those needy areas. So this is part of the broader contingence plan that we've put in place for the predicted El Nino. But just for completeness and to re-emphasize, there are 6 pillars that we are looking at. We now know that there is a possibility of close to 100% of the El Nino occurring during the summer of 2026 to 2027. What we are waiting for is the Southern Africa meteorologists to be able to tell us the magnitude of that El Nino, so that we can prepare accordingly. But government has a very robust 6-pillar plan that first focuses on enhanced strategic grain reserve, the one that I've mentioned at GMB, but also the household grain reserve, Mudura, and then ensuring that Ispukuto do not come and attack that, but also the 10 kg gratitude collection. But there's a lot of loss and waste along the cereals and food value chain. We get losses in the field, we must reduce and eventually eliminate those. As we buy food, we must just buy what we consume, not buy to eat and live. So 30% waste happens along the value chain. So that education is important. We then look at climate smart agriculture as another pillar, enhancing Pumvudza and much more. We are looking at a new financing architecture. We are looking at livestock drought mitigation measures. We are looking at enhanced exports, but also the sixth is to look at this government-wide and sector-wide coordination mechanism, early warning and capacity building for both our agricultural business advisory officers, but more importantly, for the farmers themselves. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The last question from Chen Williams is directed to the Minister of Finance. I don't know whether you got it clearly, Honorable Minister.
Yes, I understood it. He is requesting further detail and clarification on the various fee reductions. If I can go through those, thank you very much for the question. So for example, let me start with the industrial hemp issue. So two types of fees were adjusted. It's industrial hemp registration fee, which is currently set at $500 US. This is per annum. This has been reduced to $250 US, so it's been halved. The industrial hemp farmer registration fee has also been reduced from $200 US per annum to $50 US per annum. Let me now turn to the MCAS, Medicals Control Authority, licensing permits and fees. Most of these pertain to the medicinal cannabis. So for the application processing fee, which is currently set at 10,000, has been reduced to 1,000, and this is one-off. Then the medicinal cannabis license, which is currently set at 50,000, and this lasts for 5 years, has been reduced to 15,000, also lasting for 5 years. Then the medicinal cannabis license renewal, which is obviously every 5 years, is at 50,000 currently. It has now been reduced to 7,500. Then the research permit has been reduced from 5,000 to 1,000. And the inspection fee has been reduced from $2,500 per inspection to $400 per inspection. And then the late submission of annual returns penalty, which is currently set at 15,000 per incident, has now been reduced to 1,500 per incident. Turning to the issue of tricycles, which was mentioned, that currently our vehicle inspection department has not been making use of tricycles in licensing users of tricycles. So we are saying that from now on, we will make sure that they start testing users for licensing purposes using the tricycles, because we are aware of the positive impact they are making in areas such as Wonde Valley, such as Wedza, where women drivers have been empowered to carry this and that in the rural areas, even the sick. They are making an income, they are giving a service, and we would like these programs to be spread right across the province or the country. So this we have encouraged. When it comes to vehicle ownership, and here the issue in terms of change of ownership, the issue is mainly around just better coordination, so that the 4 steps that we have identified as the steps you need to go to in terms of change of ownership of a vehicle, those could be better coordinated between CVR, Civil Registry, the police, and then Vehicle Theft Department in Zimra. Those 4 could work better and create perhaps a one-stop shop to make it easier for citizens to make to receive that service. On the sporting front, in terms of gate takings by the Sports and Recreation Commission, currently set at 6%. Here we have recommended that this be reduced by 50%, so it should be reduced to 3%. And then the ZIFA 6% gross income per match, again be reduced by 50%, so it is 3%. And then the PSL League levy, Premier Soccer League levy, which is pegged at 10% net of income, should be reduced to 4%. And then the local authorities 15% venue hire levy, which should be reduced to 10% of total gross attendance. And then also the reduction in local authorities outdoor advertising should be kept at $2.50 per square meter. You even have variation across local authorities where some are as high as 14 or so US dollars per square meter, some as low as $2, and we're saying that whatever there should be a cap at $2.50, and obviously over time harmonize the spread. There are some cemeteries which have started charging entry fees to a cemetery, and this is impacting our citizens. They can't easily go in now to pay homage, to honor their relatives who have since departed. So we have recommended that, made a decision that these cemetery entry fees be abolished, and those who are even thinking of introducing them should desist from introducing those kind of fees. So these are some of the adjustments, colleagues, that we Cabinet has recommended today for implementation. Thank you.
Let me thank members of the Fourth Estate for the questions and the honorable ministers for responding to those questions. We've come to the end of today's post-cabinet press briefing.